Hello and welcome to episode 217 of Page One, the Writers Podcast. I'm Tarek.
I'm Marco, and thanks for joining us on the podcast where we like to speak to writers of all kinds about their writing careers, find out how they got into the industry, and try and get as many hints and tips from them as possible. And we do have a huge back catalogue of great guests, so please do check that out if you haven't already. But this week we are speaking to someone in your genre of writing, Tarek.
Yes, lovely, dark, horrible crime fiction. We're chatting with Nadine Matheson, who her debut novel was The Jigsaw Man back in 2022, and her latest is The Kill List, which is on paperback I believe it's out just now, actually, I think, at the time of recording. And she's had a really interesting route in, as so many have. Someone who's done the Creative Writing Masters, which we've heard a few folk talk about. Trevor Wood talked about doing a similar course in the latest episode. Yep. And how she got into that course, what she thought of that course, what it was like, how that helped form the Jigsaw Man, how it helped going into finding agents. So it had quite a big impact on her career, I think.
Yeah, she almost didn't. She sort of won her place on that, and she wasn't sure whether to do it. But as it was important that she did, because it ended up leading to that. And not only that, but her first book, she got her agent. She had, through her tutor, I think, on that course, suggested her to her agent, and then she had a choice of agents to pick from. She talks a bit about, how do you choose between agents, especially when you're at that stage of your career and you don't really know exactly what it is you're looking for. And also, then her first book, not only does she get her agent, she then goes on auction as well, which is very exciting. But again, she explains, as a debut author, well, that's exciting. It's also a bit scary. You don't know really what's happening at that time. So it's a good chat. I mean, Nadine, we should say as well, has her own podcast. We mentioned this in the discussion, the conversation with Nadine Matheson, where she talks to authors as well. So it's a bit of a podcast crossover episode, I guess. But yeah, no, it's a really fun chat. Nadine's great to speak with. So we'll get straight into it after a quick advert for a writer's notebook. But before we do, I just want to remind everyone, as I always do at the start of these episodes, that we do also have a Patreon, which means that you can support the podcast. Absolutely. And supporting the podcast means that we can continue to do it, first of all, because we don't get any money otherwise. And also, we continue to get great guests on the podcast. And also, we've got exciting plans, for the future of the podcast to keep trying to grow it as well. And you get all sorts of benefits. You can support us at a low tier just to support us, or you can get early access to episodes. You get bonus episodes. You get very early access to our drafting notes episodes, free books, free notebooks, all sorts of things. So the link is in the podcast description. So please do check that out if you haven't already. But as I say, we'll get straight into it, and then we'll be back at the end of the podcast with a bit more chat.
But for now, on with the podcast.
The blank page. To some, it's terrifying, an obstacle to overcome. But we prefer to think of it as an opportunity, a blank canvas to be filled with all of the adventures and characters in our head. So how to overcome that fear? Well, we all know the best advice for a writer is write. Seriously, get words on the page and more will follow.
But what about later, when you start trying to pull those threads of what you've written together? What about the character you wrote about way back at the start? Who was she again? What was she carrying? And where did she leave the MacGuffin that she now really needs in the third act? Think about all those top thrillers you like to read, or that amazing drama you just watched. What did they all have in common? Structure and planning.
As aspiring writers ourselves, we've tried many different methods to try and organise all the thoughts about the stories we want to tell. We've been there searching for a piece of scrap paper to note something down, or making a quick note on our phone in between meetings.
Or sometimes we'll make a note in whatever notebook we're carrying, or a document on our laptop so we don't forget that great idea. Let's be honest, it can all be a bit messy and it's easy to lose track of everything. And that's when we realised it's not just the story that needs structure and planning, but the way we gather all of our thoughts about it as well.
And so we made Page One. Page One is more than just another notebook. It's a place to put down all your ideas for your latest project. divided into easy-to-use sections that will help you plan your story, so that when that blank page comes calling, you're ready to answer. And then afterwards, once it's written, we realised you need to plan how to let people read it, so we included a section relating to submissions.
Each one is designed for one project, whether you want to write a book, screenplay, a comic, or any other kind of story. We truly believe that when you use it, it will help you get to the main event, writing your story. So we hope this helps.
We can't wait to read what you come up with.
And remember, every story starts with page 1.
Did you always want to be an author?
I think I would honestly say no. I didn't think about being an author. I know I loved books and I love stories, but I didn't think I could be an author, because I always say I didn't know that being an author was an actual job. I didn't know being a writer was a job. And when I was younger, I think I always said I wanted to be a lawyer. And so when your parents are telling you to do well in school so you can go to university and get a job, they're not telling you to be a writer. Yeah. Like, their idea of a job is, be a lawyer, be a doctor, be an engineer, be anything. So not initially.
When you're in school, it does feel like sometimes you get pushed on these vocational jobs, and there's, like we said before, like, there isn't one which is pushed on. Certainly wasn't with me anyway. And it was like, you do feel that there's 5 jobs in the world, and it's like lawyer, doctor, vet, dentist, whatever, and there's
accountant.
Accountant, that's a good one,
Yeah, and that's it.
Yeah, tons of jobs out there which aren't really shouted about as much as they should.
No, and even if they talk about writing, like in school, it would only be in terms of being a journalist, because that's what I wanted to do as well. Yeah. So I said I knew I either wanted to be a journalist or be a writer. But I've said this before, like my careers teacher, and I had my careers meeting when I was 16. She's like, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to be it's either a lawyer or journalist. I haven't decided yet." And she said, "Well, do you want to be inside making the news, or do you want to be outside in the rain waiting for the news?" And it was the rain that put me off.
Well, I hate
I'm
rain,
so vain. I'm so vain. I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get wet. My hair's gonna get wet. I can't be doing no. I'll be inside."
And also, lawyer making the news. That's not generally that would be what lawyers want to avoid doing as well.
It's not even like
you'd be a really bad lawyer.
Oh my God, you'd be a terrible lawyer. I mean, I told you like a very short story. I remember going to court one day, and I've walked into the courtroom, looked on my right, looked at the dock, and there's a lawyer I know sitting in the dock, and I'm like, what on earth is she doing in there? And she was up for fraud. She was up for mortgage fraud, a whole bunch of them. Yeah. So you do not want to be a lawyer.
You don't want to be making the news as a lawyer, definitely not. So obviously you followed that path to becoming a lawyer, but then were you writing while you were doing that, or when did the writing bug or become more serious for you?
I was always that child. Like, you could leave me alone to do whatever I wanted. Like, I wasn't hard work in that respect, but I was always that child. I'll be in a corner. Like, I'll just be doing my own little projects. So my own little writing projects, whatever subject, like, just took my fancy. I'll get my little notebook and I'll do my little project. And I think I was writing my own stories. And I do remember at 9, I took my dad's typewriter and I started. I said I was going to write a book, and all it ended up being was I'd watched The Labyrinth. So it was just me.
Just a retelling.
It was a retelling. It wasn't even fanfic. It was just a retelling of The Labyrinth. So that was the first book I wrote, if you can call it that, when I was 9. But I was always writing. I remember, like, being in school, like, I always enjoyed doing like creative English. So writing our own stories, I always enjoyed that. But I don't think until I got to university, like, I was like, oh no, I wouldn't mind writing. But then it was just kind of, I don't know, just being this typical sanctimonious teenager, writing your own film scripts because you've watched Pulp Fiction far too much, and Reservoir Dogs. So, I'm going to write my own version. So I wrote my own version, which I probably never finished. There's like half-written film scripts on a floppy disk in a loft somewhere. So there was that. But I honestly don't think I started seriously thinking about writing till I was working at the BBC. And that was about 2002. Can't remember how old I was, like early 20s. But I think, and it wasn't the creative side. It was like the copyright side of it. They call it talents right. So I was dealing with the copyright side. But I think when you're just surrounded by everyone wanting to do different things anyway, everyone who worked there, they're all creative in their different ways. I think when you're surrounded by creative people, you kind of feed off that. Yeah. So in my lunch hour, I'd be writing like a little paragraph, little scene, email it to my friend next door, Sudesh. I'm like, what do you think? And he's like, no, we'll carry on reading this. So it was then that I thought, no, I have a story, and I knew I had a good story. And I thought, well, I'm going to write it. But that took me about 5 years to actually finish.
Was that The Sisters? Is that a book?
No, it was something. It's never seen the light of day. It probably never will.
Okay.
It was a book I called "Tell Me Something Good," and I wrote it, and I finished it when I qualified as a solicitor, and that was in 2006. And I sent it off. Actually, no, I think I sent off before that because I was working as a paralegal in a city firm, so I was using their post room to send off the submission package to the agents. But looking back, I was like, no, I had no business sending that book out because it's terrible. It's not like it has there's a story there, and the character. I know that I can recognise the things that I'm good at. So like I know I'm good at characters and I'm good at dialogue, but overall, like point of view switches like 500 times in one paragraph. It's I had no business sending that out at all.
So that was your first, I suppose, serious effort at a book.
Yeah.
And did that, obviously you did actually send it out then, but I presume you maybe got a few rejections from that. But had it then, you know, what made you keep going at that point? Had you caught the bug then that you wanted to do it?
I think I caught the bug. I'm very stubborn. Like, you know, when you don't know better, you just send this book out and you're thinking, well, they're going to take it. Like, they're going to be falling over themselves to take it. Yeah. But back then, it wasn't an email submission. It's a physical submission. And they'll send the book back, which is just rude. So you see your own handwriting on the envelope land on your doormat. But I think I'm just very stubborn. I think once I got the bug, I'm like, no, I want to write a book. I really want to write a book. And when you're constantly, you know, I read as much as I was reading. And sometimes I get to the end of the book and be like when I read James Ellroy, thinking, oh my God, I just want to write like that. And other books, finishing it and thinking, that was terrible. I could have done a better job than that. Yeah. And I think as long as you keep telling yourself that I can do a better job, it kind of keeps the fire burning. So I think that's what kept me going. But then, you know, I qualified as a solicitor, and that takes up a lot of time. So the writing kind of got pushed to the side, but I was always dipping in and out of it. But it wasn't until 2013 when I took redundancy. That's when I kind of stepped up a level in terms of taking it serious. And because I had time, like I was more in control of my time. So I was able to utilize it more and say, okay, I can spend Monday working on a book. And I did whatever it's called, NaNoWriMo. Yeah. And I completed that. The first time I didn't complete it. The second time I did it, I completed it. And that's when I wrote The Sisters. And I had these 50,000 words. And I thought, oh, this looks all right. I could do something. And also self-publishing was like kind of at its zenith at that point. So you knew there was options, which I think kind of changed things for a lot of people. You knew it wasn't just one route. It wasn't just traditional publishing. Yeah. And a friend of mine who was a barrister, and he'd left, moved to Copenhagen. And we got talking and discovered that he writes sci-fi. So we became like our own little support group. So I wrote short stories for his anthology because I like speculative fiction as well. So it was like a nice alignment of things, having redundancy, my friend Andrew leaving, so we all got our little support group together, then completing NaNoWriMo for the first time and thinking, actually, this is actually, I think it's decent. Let me work on it some more and I can just self-publish it. And that was The Sisters. And I think it was 2015. So it's like 10 years ago. Yeah. Now.
Uh-huh. And then I saw I was looking at your kind of history, and I saw that you'd won the City University crime writing competition in 2016, and I wondered what was that? Was that linked to your master's degree, the creative writing, or was that a separate thing? What was, because that seems to have had quite a big impact on your debut novel.
The City, so it was a competition. Because I have a master's degree in international relations, so that's got nothing to do with writing. Did that years ago, but that was 2016. So I said things kind of happen. It's like nothing happens for ages, and then things kind of just speed up in a way. So 2015, I self-published The Sisters. 2016, I had an operation, so I was off sick work for I signed off for about 3-4 months, and I entered a competition I saw on Twitter back when Twitter was good. So I saw it was City University and PFD agents. I think it's Peters Fraser's Dunlop. I think that's the agent.
I think that's right.
Yeah. So they had a competition where it was send us 5,000 words of a crime story, and I just saw 2,000 words. I'm blaming it on the fact I was medicated, recovering from an operation. So all I saw was win £2,000. I thought, all right, then I'll just enter that. And I sent off I wrote these 5,000 words because I've got nothing to do. I'm just lying on the sofa. I can't even move really. So I sent off these 5,000 words. And then later on, I discovered it was £2,000 bursary of a creative writing master's, but you could specialise in either crime writing or literary fiction. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going because I'm.
Can I get the money? I just want the money.
Yeah, literally, I just want the £2,000. I'm off work. I'm self-employed. Like, I need the money. I don't want to go. Literally, my mind, because I teach as well in the law school, but that's all freelance. So my mind was thinking, I don't want to be going to school to learn because I'm already in a school teaching. Teaching the students. But when I discovered that it was an actual course, I was like, no, I'm not interested. And I literally just put it out of my mind. And then they emailed me. The course leader emailed me and said, oh, we've got your entry. We haven't decided anything yet, but would you consider applying for the course anyway? I'm like, I don't want to go on a course. But my mum was looking after me. She'd come over. You know what mums are like? Go to school. It'd be good.
So your mum made you go on the course that you'd won on the competition?
Yeah, my mum made me do the course. She made me apply. Okay. I got through and they were like, oh, you're invited. And I was like, oh, God. I made a deal with my brother who lives in Japan. And he was like, he's more practical than me. And he said to me, look, if you win, it's quite straightforward. If you win, do the course. If you don't win, then don't do the course. I'm like, yeah, actually, it's quite that simple. And lo and behold, a few months later, I got the email, congratulations, you've won. And I called my brother. He just started laughing down the phone. He didn't even congratulate me. He didn't say well done. So that's how I ended up on the course. And because for that course, you had to write like your dissertation. It was writing a novel. And you had to write a full novel in order to complete the course. And that's when the Jigsaw Man came. It literally came from a 1,000 word assignment on building suspense. And I had an idea because I live by the river and I was like, oh, and I always see the mudlarkers all the time. They're looking for treasure. And I thought, well, what would happen if they found an arm? I'm like, that's suspenseful. I can't think of anything more suspenseful for that. And that's how it started. And that's how the Jigsaw Man started.
And did the course itself, I know maybe it wasn't your first choice, but did that, was that something that you found helpful towards, completing a novel like that?
Yeah, because I found it sounds like an odd thing to say, but I found writing like a crime novel a lot harder than just writing, because the sisters, I'll just call it contemporary fiction.
Yeah.
It's family drama. And to me, you're just talking about your life. Well, you're describing life like everyday scenarios. And yes, it's got drama and tension and all those things, but it just felt more straightforward. Whereas, writing a crime novel, it's all about the plot. If you can't get the plot right, then everything else, doesn't matter how good your characters are and how, amazing your location is. If you can't get the plot right, then it all falls apart. So and I'd already started writing a crime novel before I'd even entered the course, and I kept getting stuck at 20,000 words. Like I had this character called Nick, and I still remember Nick. He just got released from prison and he'd gone home to his uncle's house, and poor Nick is still sitting in the living room waiting for me to do something with him, because that was the 20,000 word mark, and I didn't know what to do with him. So poor Nick is still there waiting for me. So I found with the course and it's things but you need someone to explain it to in a different way, in a sense. So for me it was very, very useful.
I also think what you said about having a little support group, even if in your first case it was your friend, and then presumably on this course you spoke to people as well. I think it's something that aspiring writers can sometimes not be aware of how helpful that can be, just to have other people to support you, whether it's to discuss ideas or just literally to support you, to say, oh, I'm having a bad writing day today, and they can empathize and understand where you're coming from and that sort of thing.
No, definitely, because I think all writers, they're always scared initially. It's other people's response to your work.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. You can tell yourself you're the best writer ever, but the thought of letting someone read your work, you're like, oh my god, what are they going to think? Doesn't matter how confident you are in life, you will feel insecure. But having that, whether it's one person, I think the first writing group I ever went to, they met in a cafe, and I took myself there, whereas before I just wouldn't have done it. But it was getting over that first hurdle of having someone read your work and give a critique, and also for you that support. But as I said, my friend Andrew, he was a writer, I'm a writer. We both come from the same profession. So having that feedback, having that, it's comfort as well. You need to know that someone's there and they understand, because you can tell your family, but unless they're writers themselves, they don't understand why you're crying about line edits.
So you finished your creative writing master's degree with the Jigsaw Man written, and what happened at that point? Because I take it at that point, did you use that to find an agent, or did you get a deal without an agent for that first book?
Yeah. So what happened with the course? Everyone on the course, they took their books, basically. They took the first 5,000 word of their books, and they put it into an anthology, and then they sent that anthology out to a bunch of agents. So that was all. Right. That's why the course was really. They've stopped. Yeah. They changed the course now. That's another story. But that was such a good thing about the course. Not only did you finish a book, but you kind of jump over the slush pile a bit, because they've sent out this anthology out to agents. And I was honestly thinking, because I know I'd self-published before, and because I wasn't 100% into doing the course, it's like I've won it. I've just got, let me just do the 2 years. Let me finish the book and then whatever. But I just said to myself,
prison sentence.
I
let me out of this.
I'm so ungrateful. Listen to myself, it's like, Nadine, it's just so disrespectful. But honestly, that's how I felt, because I'm working, I've got other things going on. So I just thought to myself, look, if no one picks it up, I'll just self-publish it. That was what was on the forefront of my mind, and I didn't think an agent would pick it up, but they sent it out, and I remember they sent it out November 2018. That's when we completed the course, and December I got emails, I think, from 11 agents asking for the full manuscript.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah, which you're saying nice. I was like, what the hell? It's like, what do they mean?
When will they let me out?
When will they let me out? It's like Al Pacino in The Godfather 3.
Marking another day. Marking another day off on the wall.
Just another. Oh, Christ.
Oh, crap. They want more. So they asked for the full manuscript. And because my tutor had marked it, they give you, it's like editor's notes. They give you notes. So I said, okay, I'm going to incorporate these notes. I'm going to edit it and then I'll send it out to you middle of December. So I did that. And then my agent, who I have now, he's my tutor. He was my tutor's agent. And my tutor said to me, because he's the first one who emailed me and said to me, oh, do you have representation? And I was like, what are you talking about? No, I don't have representation. And then he said to me, oh, you should consider sending it to my agent as well. So I emailed, and again, you've jumped over the slush pile, because you've got that direct contact. And my agent's email's not even on the internet. You have to go through his assistant. So he gave me his email. I emailed him. And I said, well, William Ryan said I should send you my book. Like, do you want to read it? You know what? You know all the advice you have about writing a cover letter and a whole submission package? None of that, because my email was... It didn't follow the format at all. It was like, do you want to read it? And he was like, yeah, send it to me when it's ready. I went, okay. And I sent it to him. And by the end of Christmas, before Christmas had even finished, he emailed me and said, I'm really enjoying it. I'll be back in touch with you. And before the new year, 3 of the agents who'd finished reading it, they asked to see me. And I saw them January 2019. January 2019, I saw the agents. And then they all wanting to represent me. This is the thing, the 3 who had finished reading it. So the others were still out there reading it.
Yeah.
And I saw them. All 3 of them offered to represent me. And I chose Ollie. But it was terrible, because not terrible. Like, I'm glad I chose him. But at the time, I always say in my own podcast, like this, there's loads of advice to find an agent, but there's no advice as to what happens if you need to choose between different agents.
That's good.
Or
Yeah.
Or what happens after you sign with an agent and that whole submission, it's like a complete empty space. So I was emailing all my tutors, my mentor. I was like, what should I do? How do I decide? And like, do a pros and cons list, look at their offer list, see if they, similar to what you're doing. And then the last thing is like, but also go with your gut. And I'm like, well, my gut's not telling me anything, which is why I'm emailing you. But that's literally what I did. Like, I did my pros and cons list, but then I thought, no, I think my gut's telling me Ollie. So I went with Ollie.
That's fast. That's from the November, submission to the January. That's a really quick turnaround. That's
and to have a choice of 3 agents is obviously a great thing as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say as well, like everything you're told, and I said I know my story is kind of unusual because it is so quick.
Yeah. But no, but it's true. You don't really have that kind of information about how. Like most people are you're so grateful. I remember getting so grateful that someone said yes and made me an offer to represent me. I was like, yes, it could have been anyone. It's like, just get a foot in the door, and there's not much of a chat about like how weighing up agents, and even when you look at who do you apply to when you're applying to agents, you go off like sales and other authors and stuff, but it's all very kind of commercial, and it's not really necessarily will they work with you with your style. You don't really know that kind of thing, so it's quite difficult to make a decision, I think.
No, I honestly think that's what's missing in the whole how to find an agent conversation. Because you can all do the research, you can all go through the writers and artists yearbook and pick out agents or check the acknowledgements to see who their agents were, but decide trying to work out if this agent is the right one for you, that takes a lot of thought. But again, as you're saying, Tarek, you're so grateful. They understand. You just want to get your foot in the door, and you're told. It's like being a solicitor and trying to get a training contract. You're told it's so hard. To get a training contract, so you just grab it, even if you end up doing conveyancing.
And it's not until like 2-3 years later that you look back and think, actually, now I should have done that and I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But you don't know when you're first starting off. You've no idea what to expect or what the pros and cons are, or the reality.
No, absolutely. I mean, both Tarek and I had an agent and then have changed agents since then. So it is a difficult thing because it is that sometimes you are spending so long, years sometimes, trying to find an agent. So when someone says, oh, I'll offer to represent you, you immediately want to say yes, absolutely, without asking the questions that with some experience you realise you probably should ask of agents to begin with. And as you say, there is less information about that. There's all the information about the submission package and the query letter and all of that sort of stuff. But the other, will you work well together? Will this agent do the things that you're wanting them to do? All of that sort of stuff is just as important.
Yeah, because it's very much a relationship, and you have to, feel like a marriage. It's not going to work if you don't like each other and you don't understand what each other wants.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then, so you had this, you found the agent after having this choice, and then Jigsaw Man went on to have an auction as well. So it's like the dream debut thing. Yeah.
You know what? If being completely honest, I think it's the most insecure I've ever felt in my entire life, because being a lawyer, it's like I know that job, I know that world, and also there was a clear path to becoming a solicitor. Which I traveled that path. I did the trade. I did everything. So I'm just very secure in that world. But then I move into publishing. My book goes out on auction, and you're like, well, you don't even really you know what an auction is in terms of if you watch Homes Under the Hammer, but in terms of like. In terms of what an auction means in publishing and how it works, like I was clueless. But then also that's what your agent's there for, to explain it all to you. But then also as well, all you've been told from doing the course and then just, I suppose, general reading and social media is that, Bury auctions don't really happen anymore, and you'd be lucky if you get $2,000 for your book, be grateful. So I was like, you know what, I'll take this is my thought process. It will go out. If someone takes it, happy days. If they offer me $2,000, happy days. I'll take the $2,000 and I'll carry on being a lawyer.
Just looking for that $2,000 that you never got.
It's the $2,000. I don't know what it is about them. Maybe when I was younger, $2,000 felt like being a millionaire. I don't know.
There's obviously significance there,
yeah. I'll get a therapist to look into it. But I just would have accepted that, because you're not told to expect anything. Yeah. And then again, because everything happened so quickly. So yeah, I was so insecure because like I don't like it. I don't like knowing, not quite understanding what's happening. Yeah. Because I need to understand what's happening in my other job. I need to know everything, and I didn't really know everything. And there's a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes also, even during an auction. So that was quick. So literally, I went from signing with I signed with my agent on my birthday. So I signed with him on the 29th of January. He had me do like some edits on the book, but he gave me a very tight window to turn it around. So I did it in 2 weeks. And then beginning of February, he sent it out. So he went out on a Tuesday, and Friday we had our first offer. And then Monday I was in an auction.
That's
all of
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
the
nuts.
process has been super quick. You know, from November to February, you know, it is crazy.
Yeah, and there was that's the thing, and I think the reason why I felt insecure about it is because there's nothing out there that could prepare you for that. Doesn't matter what you've read, who you've spoken to, nothing will prepare you for that at all. So at one point, I had to say, I remember meeting I can't remember who we met. We met a publisher, and I remember saying, so I have to put my lawyer hat on, because if I start thinking about it emotionally, I'll just be rocking in a corner somewhere. So I had to put my lawyer hat on and just be very, I suppose, practical about it. Just literally just think with my head, because it's a lot to take on.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is as I said, the sort of, you know, it's the dream debut kind of thing that's happening.
Yeah.
There. I mean, you must, once it all settled down, once you had you decided which publisher to go with and everything. How did it feel at that point?
It's still. I'm only laughing because it didn't settle down. I was still like a mess. I didn't calm down. I told you when I calmed down, August in Crystal Palace Park? I think it was Crystal Palace or somewhere. And it was a festival, and I started bawling my eyes out. I might have been a bit drunk because we've been there all day. My best friend was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "It's all such a lot of stuff has happened. I think it will hit me." It took a while to hit me. But, and I think the reason why it hit me so late is because, you know, I signed in March, and then nothing happens because I meet my editor and you're waiting for your edits. So there's nothing happening at all for about...
Jigsaw Man came out in 2022, right? So that was a couple of years after you get
2022? 2021, I think it came. 2021, I think it came out. Yeah. I think it came out February 2020. I signed in 2019. And it came out February 2021. So that's 2 years. Is that 2 years?
Yeah.
Doing my math. Yeah, it's 2 years. It's 2 years.
But yeah,
so
that's a long time of waiting. And
Yeah, so it's a long time. And so I signed, and I think it was about 3 or 4 months until I got my edits, my first round of edits. And then I did my edits. And then again, you know, it's like it goes and comes back. Then we had a pandemic. So things really got, and I think my original publishing date got pushed back because of the pandemic. So I think they pushed it back a bit because they think, oh, it'll be over, and I thought it would be over. So which is why my Jigsaw Man experience is a bit of a weird experience, because you know, I signed when the world was alive, and then it came out when nothing was happening, when everything was shut down.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel like I had like a proper debut experience, because it just felt like it all just happened behind closed doors.
And so you then obviously wrote the Binding Room. Was it the Binding Room, the next one?
Yeah.
So did that, when that came out, did that feel more like the real start of your career, or not even then?
I think when the Jigsaw Man paperback came out, because it came out exactly a year later, so that came out 2022. So I think then, because then it felt like, oh, I can go in, like I left the house, went to the supermarket, went to Waterstones, like I could see it, went to Waterstones, Piccadilly, and you know, I think it was in a couple of magazines, so I could see it, so it felt more like, oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like. And in the binding room, yeah, I think it was a different experience as well, because that was the first hardback that came out. But then also it's following on from the Jigsaw Man, so it's kind of like a different pressure also.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, how did you find writing that second book? Because, you know, everyone talks about the second book being tough to follow, because you're trying to recreate the success of the first one. You're worried it's not going to be as good, etc., etc. How did you find the writing process compared to book one?
I think the best thing I did was I listened to my tutor, and when I told him that, so I listened to Will, and I told him that I signed with Ollie, and he said to me, and I think I must have signed with the publisher, I must have had the publishing deal, because he said to me, right, start writing a second book now. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Let me enjoy my moment. I want to think about second books. And he said, no, start writing the second book now. So I started writing. Even I hadn't written much, but I'd had the idea and I planned it out. And I started writing the second book. I must have started writing it in 2020. I must have done. But what I then found difficult was, because no one tells you about this either, there's a point when I'm writing the binding room, and the Jigsaw Man keeps coming back because you're doing edits and then line edits. Okay. So it's this stop and start, which you're not really prepared for at all. And then you get into a nice flow of writing the second book, which is what I found it. Then I found it hard because we went into a pandemic. So that's what made it harder for me, because writing in this very strange. I mean, I'm used to working from home, but being forced to stay at home, it's different. So that's what made it hard. And then because the Jigsaw Man was getting good reviews, that adds on another pressure. So that's when the pressure of the second book came from. Like, well, how is this going to match up to the Jigsaw Man? And they're going to be expecting the Jigsaw Man, and this is not the Jigsaw Man. This is something different. So yeah, that's where the pressure was coming from with the second book.
And then obviously the third one, The Kill List, came out last year, and do you want to tell us a little bit about The Kill List, since that's the most recent one?
I will, but can I just say, I think there's second book syndrome, third book syndrome, fourth book syndrome. It
never gets easier.
It never gets easier.
No.
I sat down to write the Kill List, and I was like, how do I write again? That's honestly, I was like, I don't think I can do this. But the Kill List is the third book in my Detective Angelica Henley series. And Inspector Henley, she leads a unit called the Serial Crimes Unit in Southeast London. And in the Kill List, it's basically the re-emergence of a serial killer after 25 years. And 25 years ago, Henley, she found her best friend's body, who was murdered by this man who they thought was called Andrew Streeter, and he went on to murder 5 other people. But 25 years later, it turns his convictions were overturned, and then he dies under mysterious circumstances, and the original serial killer comes back. So
nice.
The fun bit of that book was going back to 95.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, that was the fun bit. But then, I realised me and timelines aren't friends. Because it just, when I was doing the edits of that book, it was just my first part of the editor's notes was, you need to fix your timeline. I'm like, I'm never doing flashbacks again.
And it's funny what you say there about second book, third book, fourth book syndrome, etc., and how that kind of never goes away. Because I'm sure maybe you said that the thing that you do get better at as you write more and more is that you start to kind of know what your editor is going to say as you're writing it. So I suppose you are getting quicker. You're getting closer to that final draft without having to do as many drafts, I guess, as you write. So I suppose that's improving. Yeah,
because what I found is that you're preempting what your editor's going to say in the editor's notes.
Yeah.
Because for me, my editor's notes are always, what is Henley thinking? What is she thinking? So I said, I know I'm good at dialogue and I know I'm good at certain things, but then I kind of need to tell you like what's going on in my character's head. So when I'm writing now, I can hear Manpreet saying, well, what is she thinking? So I'm able to do that now. So I found, especially with the Kill List, when I got my editor's notes, I thought, oh, actually, even with book 4 as well, I found, it's not as extensive as, in comparison to the Jigsaw Man. It was pages and pages and pages, and it was like, you need to put a red herring there, you need to do this. And I'm like, a red herring? You want me to come up with a whole completely different new character? And it's like when you put in a new character, or even if you just change a location,
it changes everything then.
Everything.
Yeah.
So I didn't have that with the Kill List, and I didn't have that with the 4th book. So you do find that, the way you self-edit changes as well. So you do get quicker to an extent and a bit more efficient. So less, what is she thinking?
And when you're writing a series like that with the same character and stuff like that, do you find it easy to, because that's what's always scared me with the idea of a sort of crime series, is keeping it fresh and coming up with new ideas for that set of characters to investigate in a way that is different from the other books, but I suppose similar in a way, so that people still associate them.
Yeah, because social media now, so your readers, they can get in touch with you very, very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Literally. Well, I suppose back in the day you had to wait for a letter, but now they're just in your DMs. Yeah, they're just in your DMs and in the comments, and they want the same, so they want that world and they need that familiarity of that world, and sometimes they want characters to come back, like in the first book, in the Jigsaw Man, the serial killer Olivier. I would be lying if every couple of weeks I don't get an email saying, is he coming back? And I'm just like, well, maybe not. So, but the challenge is, I suppose there's comfort in returning back to the same characters and the same setting. So I built my world and I know my world. But then the challenge for me is going to be, well, I need to give you an investigation and I need to make it fresh. Because to me, even when I'm writing interview scenes, I'm like, well, a police interview is just a police interview. It's someone sitting on the other side of the table
so true.
And you're asking them questions. So there's always going to be a police interview. There's always going to be in the post, the pathologist, doing an autopsy. I'm always going to have these certain beats always in there, but it's making sure that the investigation is, I suppose, unique enough, has more unique elements around it, and then creating new characters for my existing characters to interact with. And then for me also, even with the characters I know, I need to feel like I'm learning new things about them.
Yeah, they need to develop slowly across the series of books as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Even little things.
Yeah, no, definitely. I can see that, because often I've wondered, and we've asked other guests as well, when you're writing a series like that, how far in advance are you planning? Do you have an arc for your main detective or whatever like that? And often the answer is no. They just don't. You work on that book, and then you move on, and then you sort of develop each one as it goes. So that's the same as for you as well.
Yeah, I'd love to have an arc. I'd love to know what's going to happen to them in 10. I think maybe it might make things easier, but I only found out Henley was allergic to lilies. I think in book 2. I was like, I did not know that at all. But I think that that keeps me interested and invested. I don't know what's going to happen to myself tomorrow, so why should I know what's going to happen to Henley or her husband in the books?
Yeah. And what's your routine then? Because obviously you're a lawyer by day. You're working in the criminal courts, but you're also writing books. So do you have a writing day, or do you carve time out, or do you just fit it in wherever you can?
Well, luckily I'm not going to court anymore. Thank God, because I don't know how I'd do it. Because when I was still working full time, it's the hardest thing, because especially when you're doing criminal law, I suppose any law, it's not 9 to 5. I wish it was 9 to 5, but it's not 9 to 5. So, you can find yourself in the police station at 2 o'clock in the morning. And so you can't just say, oh no, I'll work in the evenings, or I'll just work on the weekends. I could be on police station or court duty, on a Saturday. So I always say for me, it was all about just stealing time. So if I happened to finish court lucky, I finished court at 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm going home, because I know then I could write. Yeah. So you're just stealing pockets of time when you can. Now it's easier because I don't go to court, even though I still teach, but that's freelance. So I'm much more in control of how I use my time, which makes it a lot easier. But I remember there was a time when I was going to court, and I was teaching in the evening, and I was marking exam papers, and I was writing the book. And to this day, I cannot tell you, unless it was some kind of voodoo magic. I don't know how I got through that week, because it was
you just gave everyone A's. You're like,
I just gave
yep.
Everyone passed.
Yeah.
I just said yes. Everyone got full stars on their exam papers. But it's hard, because even when, there were some, so beginning of the year, it hasn't been that busy for me in terms of teaching. So I've been able to be much more in control of my time. But next week I'm teaching, and the week after that I'm teaching, and I've got, and I've recorded my own podcast, and I'm planning another series. I'm doing all sorts of things. And I'm thinking, I don't know how I'm going to find the time to do it, because all my pockets of time seem to be used up. So it's just,
and I suppose you have to not let yourself feel too bad or guilty as well about not having the time. Cause I'm sure I read that you have a kind of 1,600 word count that goal.
Where did you find that?
Yeah, we send people out to investigate
exactly.
before they come on.
It's true.
But so then, do you feel bad if you don't hit it, or do you allow yourself? There's reasons why I didn't hit it today. I was busy. I didn't get a chance to start.
Yeah, I
do.
do.
On Twitter, I went to look at.
Well, thankfully I'm not on Twitter anymore, but Blue Sky's just as addictive, and Substack. No, I do. I didn't realise it's only through writing that I've realised that I am a bit of a perfectionist. I would never have described myself as a perfectionist before. Like, I just go through the day, and I just do what needs to be done. But I am. So when I'm working on the draft, if I'm not hitting that, that's my minimum word count. And I got that from NaNoWriMo, because like, if you got to write 50,000 words a day, you break it down. Yeah. I think it's like 1,667, something random like that. So if I don't hit that minimum word count, I do feel a way about it. Like, oh, I haven't done it.
Yeah.
But then, like, one of my friends always says, look, if you wrote 50 words, it's 50 words more than you had yesterday. So you just have to look at it like that. So I've had to have strong words with myself. But I like order. I like having a plan, and knowing that I have something to aim for. Then I feel like at least I'm getting there. I'm en route to finishing.
Knowing when the book will be done. If I do this 6 words per day, in a month and a half it'll be finished, or whatever.
Yeah, cause I need a deadline as well. I think with the binding room, I didn't have a deadline for it initially, and I emailed my editor and I said, you need to give me a deadline, because if you don't give me a deadline, you'll never get a book.
I'm the same. I need but for everything, for any kind of work I do, writing or not, if I don't have a pressure of when it has to be done by, it will get pushed. And
yeah, I'm a good procrastinator. And the thing is, it doesn't mean that I have the deadline and I'm like, Speedy Gonzales at my keyboard, like, need to get it done it's just knowing that there's like an end date there. There's something to aim for.
It's hard to make excuses to not do it, I feel, when there's reason to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And you alluded to it there, but we always ask, are you a planner or a pantser? But I think you're very much a planner, you said.
Look at poor Nick, who I spoke about earlier. He's still in the kitchen because I didn't have a plan. No, I am literally after that experience, and I did the course, and I was like, no, I'm someone who needs a plan. Especially, I think when I did that, reason why I think NaNoWriMo worked for me is because you needed a plan in order to complete those. Well, for me to complete those 50,000 words. So I always have a plan, but I always say I'm not stuck. I'm not like married to it. It's like it's a situationship. Me and my plan. We go in and out, but I know it's there. So it's like having, I call it a safety net.
Yeah, I'm much the same. Yeah, I need to, for me, I need to have something there, even if it changes as I'm writing or whatever. But it's always something you can go back to, and I'll probably fiddle with it as I'm writing the main thing as well, and all that sort of stuff. But it shows me, in the same way that having a deadline is important, it shows me that I've got a direction that I'm going in. Whereas it scares me entirely just to say, right, I'm just going to start writing this and see what happens.
I couldn't. I'll tell you what would happen. I'll get the 20,000 words. Someone will be stuck in a kitchen or sitting on a bus stop. No sense of direction, because I don't know what's happening next.
Yeah.
So I can't do anything with the characters.
I was chatting to James, another author who was on the podcast, way back at the start when we started off. And he's done loads and loads of books now, and he was saying that he's started writing his plot as a screenplay, and he writes it out as a screenplay and then writes as a book. And he said because it takes him like 2 weeks or whatever to write the screenplay, or even less than that, and then because it's mainly dialogue, etc., you can really get the feel for whether it hangs together as a story, etc., before you even start writing it. You don't waste any time. I thought that was quite an interesting
and
approach.
if he sells the TV rights,
and then
exactly.
And I was like, because I'm not a massive planner. I find if I plan too much, I get quite bored when it comes to writing it. I feel what the deeper I am in it, when I get to kind of halfway, 3/4, and I'm like, fuck, I don't know what I'm doing with this anymore. I'll sit down and I'll plan the last chunk, and then I'll storm through it. That is helpful, knowing to get me to the end goal. And I often have like tempo bits and maybe an ending and roughly in my mind, but I'm probably too fluid and uncertain when I'm going through the book. But I quite like the idea of doing a screenplay, because it doesn't feel like planning. It feels like writing as opposed to planning.
I think everyone's different though, because I know I've like even speaking to other writers, and they're, as far as I'm concerned, like their plans are just the book. They've already just written the book.
Yeah.
Whereas my plan is, I said it still goes back to NaNoWriMo. So I use the 3-act structure because I like structure. I didn't think I was very geeky about like that, but I do. I like a plan. I like structure. So I use the 3-act structure and I break it down into 30 sections, split across the 3-act structure, and it's literally bullet points. It might be 3 bullet points. Well, this is going to happen and that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that just gives me room to be fluid with it.
Do you go through that plan then from point 1 to point 30 and just go, what this next bit has to be escalating the actions, so this could happen, and this bit has to be a loss, so this could happen, and then build the story up piece by piece through the whole plan? I
try to. That's always my intention. But then what I find happens is that with that first draft, I may follow like the first 3-4 sections like I'm following it. And then because of how the story has developed, or a subplot, just, I don't plan for some subplots, just materializes out of nowhere. Then I'll find that maybe section 18, I suddenly started writing about that after section 4. So, and when that happens, I'm like, oh crap. Like I wasn't planning that, but like it's okay, and it's only, and because it's the first draft, I only used that plan for, so I don't feel like, oh my god, like it hasn't gone according to plan. I'm like, okay, well the plan's just, it's like the sat nav's just changed. That's how I look at it. It's given me there's been an accident on the A2. You just need to take a right. So that's how I look at it.
Nice. Okay, I like that.
And you alluded to there, obviously you speak to other writers because you have a writing podcast of your own.
I do.
Bit of cross promotion here. The conversation. When did you start that, and why did you want to start that?
I started that 2 years ago, and I'm trying to think why I started. I know why I started it. I started it because when you're doing your own promotion for your own book, there's not a lot of places where you can promote your book and talk about your books, and it feels like, I'm just saying a random figure, like 500 writers are all vying for the same 2 spots to talk about their books and talk about their work and themselves. And I like to talk. Something the teacher's always said about me, she's very good but she talks too much. So I thought, well, I might as well put that to use. And also selfishly, I'm like, well, I can promote other people and also promote myself, because it's my platform. And that's how I started. And I think you'd find, in the beginning when I started it, you're just asking your friends to come on the podcast. Literally. I'm like, will you come on the podcast? I'm like, yeah, okay. So I think like the first season of that podcast is like I've just got my friends. But the good thing is, because I've been in writing and publishing for at least like a couple of years by that point, so I did know people. But then, and this is the surprising thing to me, you don't realize people are listening to it. It sounds so stupid, but you don't. You see your numbers, but you're not thinking it's like strangers actual people, until I went to Harrogate and I was talking to someone in the tent, and someone tapped me on my shoulder and they said, Nadine. And I went, yeah, like didn't know them. She goes, I've recognized your voice from the podcast. And I was like, oh nice. My God. Yeah, people are listening.
Yeah, that happened to me recently as well. I was at someone else's book launch, and I was standing in the queue talking to someone, and they turned round and was like, "Are you on the Page One podcast?" It's like, yeah. So it's always good. It's nice to actually meet people that it's not just me and Tarek having a conversation every week, but people are actually listening to it as well. So that's quite good.
And you said earlier on that you wrote for a sci-fi anthology, for your mate's anthology in Copenhagen, and so you've done The Sisters, which is like kind of like family drama type story. You've done your crime novels. You've done your sci-fi short story. Do you quite like dabbling in different genres and different?
I do, because I know this about myself. I like so many different things. I'm not just. It's like, I think maybe because I'm a criminal lawyer. Probably think I'm just very like straight laced, but I'm like, no, like I can watch absolute nonsense on TV, and like my reading styles are diverse. Like even if I have my Substack and I call it the pivot, because I just pivot from one thing to the next. So even with the writing, I always knew I wanted to write crime, but I started out writing this contemporary family drama, and then but also like sci-fi. Like anyone who knows me knows I love comics. So like I keep saying, I'm just waiting for it will happen. I'm just putting it out in the air. I'm just waiting for these. I just feel like if I say it enough and harass them enough, then like DC or just give Marvel to just give her a project to write. So
who's your dream character you'd want to write for?
I want to write the Question. Who's in DC?
Nice. Yeah.
I love the Question, the Vic Sage character. The Renee one. I want to write him. That's what I want. So DC, if you're listening. make me very happy.
That's the guy with the bag over his face that changes his.
It's
face.
not a bag, Tarek.
It doesn't have facial features.
Yeah.
What is it? That's his actual face.
No, it's like a mask.
I thought it was a mask.
It's like a mask.
Okay,
not a bag though. It's like just put a Tesco bag on his face.
Tesco bag, yeah.
No, but I like writing different things. I think also it helps you, even like romance. Like I love a good rom-com because it's got all the elements in there. So I'll be more than happy to write anything.
So many stories, like a romance story and a crime story. Yeah, they're very different in a lot of ways. Obviously, one's usually very light, one's usually a lot less light. But there's also so many similarities. As you say, there's lies and twists and deceits, and people are hiding things and double crossing each other, and stories are all very similar and same, I suppose. It all depends on the spin and the angle, I suppose, that you put
exactly.
on the story.
I mean, that's what I mean. Even when I was mentoring, and I had a writer just concerned that their story wasn't original, and I was like, "There's no original ideas. Literally every idea.
Yeah.
How many times does boy meet girl, boy meets boy, boy meets boy? It's all been done. There's always a serial killer running around somewhere. So it's just
so true
in literature. It's just how you tell the story, and it's your spin on it and the characters that you create. I said that's what makes it interesting and different. But if you keep, if you're worried about having an original idea, then just don't, because there's no original ideas.
It's like the recut trailer to Mrs. Doubtfire, I think it is, but it's been recut as like a horror movie. I feel like someone's done a trailer for it, but as if and you watch it and you're like, if I didn't know any better, that would be a horror film. Like it's taking the same events.
Yeah, just change the music.
Change the music, exactly. The scenes whatever you show, that you can make anything into something else. Yeah.
But I mean, it's like Jaws, isn't it? You got Jaws, then you got the Meg. It's the same idea.
Exactly. Yeah. How
you're
many
looking for a
times
big,
do you get these? Yeah.
You're looking for a big fish. It's just how you tell us. I know, I'm minimising.
There's only so much you can tell with it. Yeah.
There's only so much you can tell with a big fish.
And the Jigsaw Man's been optioned for TV. Are there any updates on that? What stage is that?
No, TV option. It's the slowest thing in the world, because it gets optioned and then nothing happens, and then. Or for me, you're talking to the screenwriter. So I was talking to the screenwriter, the person they had on board, and then that fell away. Then the option runs out. So then they re-option it, and then nothing happens. So you're like, so yeah, some people get lucky, and the thing is as well, is I overall had a very strange experience, because even with the option, it got optioned. I signed with my publisher in March, and it got optioned in July. So,
Wow.
and and this is the thing you don't even realize as well, unless you're in the world, that even when your book's out on submission, not only is it circulating around publishers, it's also circulating around producers as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't realize that until your agent says, yeah, we got 2 producers who are interested. And you're like, what are you talking about? So yeah, it's a very strange...
They quite like to kind of make a big splash when it comes out. Often when it comes out, they all at the same time they say, and it's been optioned for blah blah blah. It's, you know,
exactly. But yes, at the moment, nothing.
Slow, yeah.
It's very slow.
And so, what is next in the writing pipeline for you?
For beginning of 2025, it's been my planning month. So I've written. What have I written? I've forgotten what I've done. I've written book 4 in the series.
Nice.
So I finished that before Christmas. So that was with my editor. So I did my edits. So I'm waiting for my line edits to come back on that. And I've been doing, because I'm a planner and I need to give them an outline. So I've finished the outline for books 5 and 6 in the series, which has kind of been fun, actually. That was fun. I was like, oh, okay. It's interesting to see what I can do with them, having a bit of fun with that. But then also I've been planning, because I'm also keen not to just be known as a serial killer author, because I don't want to be pigeonholed. So I've been talking to my agent about doing a standalone. So I've been planning a standalone. But it's like what I was saying to you before we started recording. It's kicking my ass a bit, because I'm so used to my world and used to my characters with Henley.
Explain everything from scratch.
Yeah. Oh my God, everything. Like a whole background and God, it's you can see my face.
Is it still modern day dark crimey stuff?
Yeah, it's still modern day.
Okay.
No, it's still I'm not doing it's not a different genre, but it's still crime. It's more on the thriller side than it's definitely a thriller as opposed to a police procedural. And I think that's what I'm having to switch my brain around, because now I'm more in it sounds like an odd thing to say, but it's more character focus as opposed to a series, where the series it does I suppose revolve around the crime, whereas I think with the thriller it's my character being within that kind of if that makes sense. But the planning I'm and I usually have fun with the plan. What I realized that I had the idea and I like the idea and my agent likes the idea, but then now I need to flesh out the idea. And I was like, this is the hard bit. You can't just write
write it as a screenplay.
Maybe that's what I need to do.
I'm going to try that.
I might have to try that because I can't just, I can't write 80,000 words of one scene, which is basically what I've got in my head. And I got the incited incident. I'm like, well, you need more than that.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, screenplay idea. I might try that as well. What was the last book that you read?
Oh my God, I'm such an idiot. What was the last book that I read? I can tell you what I'm reading now. I'm reading First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. I think that's her name. What did I've read so many books. I can't even think what the last book I read. I'm looking around my room. It has gone completely blank. As soon as I walk out of this room, I'm going to see the book that I finished. Oh, I know what I just finished reading. I finished reading The Guilty Couple by C.R. Taylor.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I finished reading. Yes, it was so good. I messaged her and I was like, Callie, it was so good. So that was the last book I finished reading.
Nice.
Excellent.
And what about the last film that you...
The last film that I watched, what did I watch? I watch movies all the time. Oh, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, because I watched that last night.
Nice. Excellent. Always a classic.
I love it.
Did you see what did you think of Dial of Destiny?
I didn't think it was that bad. It was better than Crystal Skull, whatever that one was.
I quite enjoyed it.
Much better. Yeah. I watched it on Disney. I sat down and I was like, you know what? I was entertained. I don't know what more.
It felt much more pulpy fun. Like the Crystal Skull, it didn't seem. I remember thinking it just felt ludicrous and silly. Whereas for some reason, Dial of Destiny didn't. Although it's obviously silly fun, it didn't feel like stupid, ridiculous.
No, it felt like. I think Crystal Skulls, it sounds like an odd thing to say because it's Indiana Jones, but it didn't feel like realistic. Like I could imagine
I
going
know what
off.
you mean, yeah.
Like I could see myself going to look for the Lost Ark, and I could see myself in the Temple of Doom, or looking for the the chalice in the Holy Grail in the Last Crusade. But the Crystal Skull, bunch of skulls, it looked like an alien. I don't know. No, I wasn't interested.
I know. It was. There is something that just doesn't work with it. So I don't know. What about TV? What have you watched, or are you watching at the moment?
Oh, I'm watching Paradise on Disney.
Oh yeah, that's meant to be good things. Yeah,
it's good. And I was saying to someone today, you start watching it. I'm not, no spoilers or anything. And immediately from the first scene, you know something is off, but you can't really put your finger on it. You're like, something is not right about this world.
Oh, right.
Because it seems like it's normal, but you're like, you can't put your finger on it until you start watching. And then you're like, okay, now it makes sense.
That makes me want to watch it more, in fact.
Yeah. So that's my recommendation.
Only like is it 5-6 episodes? Because it's quite a short.
I think it's 8, because I'm on episode 4. So it better not be 4 because I've finished. And I don't know what's happened. Yeah, I think there's 8. I think there's 8 in it.
And the very, very last thing we always do is a super quick fire, either or, and there's no right answer here, perhaps to one of them. But we'll start off with, let's go for crime novels or sci-fi novels.
Crime novels.
TV or cinema?
Oh, I'm supposed to be quick, innit? Cinema, because I can get a pick a mix.
Yeah, fair enough.
Night owl or early bird?
I'm an early bird.
Music or no music when you're writing?
Oh God, music! I can't do this in silence. I go mad.
And last one, let's go for paper book or ebook.
Paper book.
Ah.
Why are you upset, Tarek?
Incorrect.
Nobody
ever picks ebook. Ebook just sits there getting ignored by everyone.
If you'd said to me, what would you take on holiday? I would say ebook because it doesn't take.
That's what everyone says. Everyone then feels bad at this point. Everyone comes up with their excuses. Here's why I love ebooks, because you go on holiday, you get your suitcases. So why don't you pick it?
I don't think it's an excuse.
Here's your chance, right?
I think it's just very practical. You take it on a holiday; it doesn't use up your weight allowance.
Why? Okay, why paper books? Is it the smell?
I like the smell of them.
Yeah,
and I like putting my bookmark on them. It could be a random bookmark.
No, don't fold the page. Don't say that.
There was a time. No. I think it's just age, though, isn't it? Because when I was younger, I'd fold the pages. I wouldn't think twice about it. Now, now I would never fold the pages.
No,
it feels. I know.
But what I find funny is when I've picked up a book that I bought like years and years and years ago, and I've opened it and I've seen what I've used as a bookmark, and it's been like travel cards, phone cards, random bus ticket.
Yeah,
I suppose that's quite nice. I guess that kind of like flash point of a moment in time.
Yeah, you're not getting that in your ebook. Yeah. You might get a little.
It's true. You're not.
You get a fingerprint.
And also, an author couldn't sign an ebook.
No, and
that is also true. That is also true.
Also, what I've realised,
you're not going to convince me that these are valid points.
No, and also you can't throw an ebook across the room. I remember reading. I can't tell you what book it was. I read this book. I was so pissed off at the end of it. I was like, I've wasted all my time reading this load of. There's a bunch of shit. I'm sorry, it was awful. And I picked up my hand to throw the book. Then I was like, I can't even throw it because it's my Kindle and it's going to break. So I had to place it very gently on the sofa and just walk away. At least with a book, you can throw it.
Not quite the same.
It's not the same.
That was a great chat. Really enjoyed that, as always. And I always really like chatting to folk about their process in terms of, before they put a pen to paper or finger to key, the planning or pantsing question, which for me I think it's something which I've definitely changed my view on. Once we've chatted to all these guests, I feel like I should probably do a bit more planning perhaps than I do currently. And as I said in the episode, the Ed James method of writing out as a screenplay, I quite like that. I think that's quite a nice. It gives you a bit of screenplay practice, and it's quick, and it almost doesn't feel like planning in my head. It feels like I'm still writing.
I wonder, like screenplays you can write quicker than a book, but I'm not sure it's that quick to write a full screenplay.
It's easy. Screenwriters are lazy. They're just lazy.
I mean, like if he's writing out a full screenplay with like the int,
I know. I wonder how close to final, or if it's just dialogue,
or if it's just the dialogue from the scenes. That's what I'm wondering. Yeah.
That's a good point. Actually,
I don't want to do down. We've had some great screenwriters on this podcast in the past. It's not like a screenplay
back on. We'll go through them. He's obviously
a lesser thing. Yeah, exactly. But no, it's interesting. It is interesting to try and come up with a different way to plan your stories.
Planning by the back door, without feeling like you're planning.
Yeah, exactly. I suppose that's it. I suppose it's you don't like the thought of planning, so maybe
I think that's a psychological thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, Nadine obviously a big planner, and as I said at the start of the podcast, you can listen to her on her own podcast, The Conversation. We'll put a link to that in the podcast description as well. But thanks very much to Nadine for coming on to the podcast. And next week we have another great guest.
We do indeed. Next week we're chatting with the wonderful David Hewson, who has written an absolutely phenomenal number of books. He has had a wonderful career, journalist, working for the Times and the Independent. Shanghai Thunder was his first novel, I think back in '86, and he's written over 30 books now. Just credible output, crime stuff, historical thrillers, kind of hard to pin down. I think a perfect genre maybe that
but interesting. I've got an interest myself in writing sort of that historical stuff, and he talks about that and about how he goes about researching that. So it's a really interesting chat to speak to David, who's someone that's written so many books, as you say, across a different number of genres. Is always an interesting chat. So please do tune in for that one. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do take the time to rate and review us on your favourite podcast app, as that always helps us to continue to get great guests on the podcast. And as I mentioned at the start, do check out our Patreon and see if there's anything of interest there. If you want to support us, that would be amazing. And you can join for free, I should have said as well. If you join for free, you still get access to our Discord, where you can chat with us and other listeners, some of whom are former guests on the podcast and successful authors.
Rubbing shoulders with the bigwigs.
Exactly. And us.
And if you would otherwise like to get in touch, of course, as always, you can find us on the various social media platforms. Just search for at UK Page One, or go into YouTube, leave us a comment or a review, like or subscribe us. Send us an email directly to our eyeballs, which is podcast@rightgear.co.uk. And I think that's all the ways, the variety of ways
exactly. Many ways to get in touch with us.
Many ways. It's surprising
join the Discord and chat with us on there, as I said.
Why do we get more? Do we need more ways to get in touch? I'm surprised we're not inundated with batting off all these emails.
Exactly.
Blue sky
we will one day have a listeners' mail section, I'm sure.
Yes, we'll have to hire someone to go through a mail for us.
Exactly. But in the meantime, have a great week, and we will speak to you next episode.
See you later.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode like these ones down here.
And if you want to get in touch, you can do so by finding us on our social media platforms up here, or drop us a comment way down below there.
But otherwise, thanks for listening, and join us for the next episode.
See you later.